Today I'm here with Dmitriy Kozlov. He is a great business entrepreneur who has created many businesses. He was one of the mentors for Maverick Next, a partner of Yanik Silver, building Yanik Silver, who's like a massive internet marketer who organizes events at the home of Richard Branson called Necker Island. He's somebody who is kind of like our chief technology officer, running our websites, web development. He has now creating a platform for building brands and phone apps. And he is somebody who is also just an overall great guy, a connector, a massive networker, and somebody who I thought I'd introduce to all you guys. He came all the way from San Diego just for this interview. Thanks a lot for coming up, bro.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me, Nick.
Cool.
Really appreciate it.
So, because you're involved with such powerful network groups, for example, Maverick Next, tell me about what you did in terms of like structuring that, because it was a group that kind of mentored entrepreneurs whose companies were about $250,000, but not yet past the $1 million mark like yourself. So I was interested in hearing how you were able to develop that, foster that, and the mentorship and the mastermind group process.
Yeah, sure. So Maverick Next, just to give a little more context there, it's a group for young entrepreneurs aged 25 and under who have six-figure plus businesses. And we introduced them to people from the Maverick Network and others like yourself. You kind of supported us a little bit. Just people who have really successful businesses. We introduce those kind of mentors to these young entrepreneurs. So for me, it was something that came out of firstly, my own desire to have a peer group like that, which I think a lot of mastermind groups come from, right? People feel kind of lonely at the top. That's for me, in my early to mid-20s, I felt a little bit lonely. I had great mentors, but not great peers to connect with. So formed a mastermind group of young entrepreneurs in that way, and then wanted to give them the experience that I've had through working with Yanik and so many others who have mentored me along the way, and want to kind of like pass that along. Even going a little bit further behind that, so before starting Maverick Next, part of the way that I developed this network was really just like looking for people that I'd want to either model or to support me along my path, and figuring out ways to support them. So the way I started the relationship with Yanik was just a pure barter deal. I was like, hey, I feel like we have very aligned futures. How can I support you? I have this web development company. Can I do some of your web work at a huge discount or at cost in exchange for some mentorship? And that's kind of how you and I started a relationship in that kind of way as well. So I've done a lot of that, just figuring out people who are doing really well when I was 23 years old, and just looking at, hey, how can I support you with the resources, the mind, the creativity that I have, and through that kind of continuing to serve and level up my own network, and then passing that along to others in my generation.
We met at a Maverick event, but our relationship was the reverse, because as opposed to you being someone that was mentored by me, you were actually mentoring my wife.
Right.
Because my wife was interested in working for you, and then basically she said, hey, can I have you mentor me, and I'll work for you for free in exchange.
Right.
And that ended up having a relationship between us. It's because we ended up living in the same city. We were living in Boston, we were living in Harvard Square, and you would come down, and it was pretty cool to see how you were building websites. And now you helped us get a situation now we're doing product launches pretty much every single month with your tech team and all sorts of other cool resources and brand building.
Right.
And one of the things I liked about what you guys do is you guys have a really strong eye for design and designing websites that are very clean. Back in the day, our stuff was so messy comparatively.
Right.
Yeah,
so one of the things that, and this helped with networking a lot as well, is because I have a services agency, and we've named that services agency now as the Vision Tech Team, so we like to think of ourselves as the tech team for visionaries. So because of that, all of our clients are people who are like top producing individuals in their field. So like you guys in the dating world, and we've got Frank Kern in the marketing world, or like Evan Pagan also in the marketing and dating world. And those are the kind of people, JJ Virgin in the health world, those are the kind of people we've served as clients. So because of that, I've also been able to connect with the cream of the crop in virtually every industry, and kind of build a reputation through the relationships that we have with our clients.
and a lot of stuff that you're doing is not just in terms of the tech, but also the marketing. For example, your team is doing marketing for Evan Pagan and other people as well. And has also helped us with some of our sales letters and actually just writing them in their entirety. I thought that was really cool. And I guess in terms of like building a brand and putting that presentation out there, what are the things that you think are the most important things that you look for in order to present that for your clients?
Right. So for us, design is really important. I know it's not important for everybody. A lot of people in direct response, like, hey, you throw up a sales letter with really great copy and it'll convert and sell. And I believe that's true. But at the same time, for us, if you want to build a really big brand, like you don't look at brands like Apple or Google that have shitty design out there on their pages. And then in the internet marketing world, you look at companies like Mindvalley, who you and I have kind of both visited and studied a little bit, or other bigger brands as you start to scale, I think design becomes really important. So that's something that we become really maniacally obsessed with, is great design and helping the direct response marketers level up their design, while the other important component is keeping high conversions. So we actually test stuff a lot. So we want to make sure that if we build beautiful designs for people, we put them out there and we test them versus their shitty designs and make sure they actually convert better, so that it's both ROI based and is beautiful and long-term brand building.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of the split tests are out there to kind of like build that higher converting rate, and we've seen that. We've also seen situations where we'll do like this really fancy design and it'll actually end up reverting back to the previous one, but at least we put it out there, try it out, and got our clients' responses. Because it's kind of, you kind of never know, because design is like an aesthetic thing, but then some people are just kind of used to getting into things. For example, we're considering reverting back our RSD Nation, just because we found out that so many clients were so used to that old design for over a decade. And so they're wondering, oh, this new design. But it's cool. But for our sales letters, we continue to tinker it. And I think that's really interesting for split tests. How are you tracking that for your clients? And what are the marketing metrics that you're using to manage your clients for KPIs and stuff like that?
Yeah, so for that, it's pretty simple. So we use either Visual Website Optimizer as a tool or Optimizely as a tool. And there's others out there, but those are the two top ones, whatever our clients prefer to work with. Since we don't technically run a marketing agency, we're more of like a creative design and tech agency. We set a lot of that stuff up for them, and then we help them manage a lot of it. But typically a CMO on their side kind of chooses the tool, they manage it, but we highly encourage testing our stuff.
One of the other things I like about you is you're also a massive networker like me. Kind of like networked from all the social circles that I know of. You know, that's how you got into going to Richard Branson's place for a week and hanging out with him free, or networking with Jean-Paul Jory at his home, and then traveling around the world with other entrepreneurs and what have you. So I guess I'd love to have you share some of the things that you think people should look for in order to become really good at networking.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really fun one for me. So the biggest one I would say, at least where I started at my age at 23 doing a lot of this stuff, was having some sort of a higher service or higher purpose in what I do. So it's not just like, hey, I'm out there trying to build a business and what can I get from these successful people in the industries, but it's always been more of like, how can I not only serve those people, but how am I serving the world at a young age in a way that makes those people want to really help me in my mission. So Maverick Next has been a huge part of that, because I work with so many young entrepreneurs, and it's not really so much of a profitable venture. It's more of like a service-oriented thing that I do with Maverick Next. Because of that, again, we've had people like Ryan Dice come out. We've had people like Matt Clark from Amazing Selling Machine, and a bunch of other people that have built 7, 8, 9-figure businesses in all different industries come out and support us, and then I become kind of the linchpin to help these really successful entrepreneurs give their gifts to the next generation of business leaders. So that's been a huge networking aspect for me, and also just like I said in the beginning, just figuring out ways that I can serve through. So whether it's through my agency, whether it's through me personally, or just making connections without thinking of what I'm going to get. So always figuring out how I can contribute a lot more to people than I take back.
A lot of the other interesting parallels between your business and mine is that your business also has a lot of remote staff. You know, a bunch of people in the Philippines. You've done executive retreats together in Boracay with your staff and my staff and the tech team and our marketing team. And the managing of that staff is a very unique process, because we manage them on Skype. You have like team building systems and sessions. I'd like for you to kind of reveal like how you actually manage that process, as a lot of people who are following this channel are business owners, and they have interest in that, because a lot of people don't have the ability to hire a bunch of people local, because it's hard to find good talent. They don't necessarily have that office.
Yeah, so this is a topic I'm super passionate about. So we've got about 25 team members between the States and the Philippines. Some that work in an office, some that work totally remote, and all of them kind of really are part of one cohesive team. So the first thing that a book that you and I have both read, I've become totally obsessed with, was just Traction by Gino Wickman, and he explains this whole entrepreneurial operating system. We've implemented that to a T. We're at like 97% with it every time we take the assessment. We keep improving. So we've implemented that really well, and then we've also built on top of it. So we do things with everybody on our team, including the people in the Philippines, from VAs to developers to designers, which is creating growth tracks for them. So we kind of, because the name of our company is Vision Tech Team, we ask them, what's the vision for your life? What's the vision for your career? And then we make sure that the work that they do with us is aligned with their key gifts, their talents, their vision for their lives. So they have these like really long-term commitments to us. and then through that they also have long-term commitments to the rest of the team. They work a lot more cohesively. And then yeah, we also use tools like obviously Skype. Basecamp is something that's been really amazing for us. We have weekly meetings both with management, and then we have weekly design meetings, weekly development meetings. We have a Facebook group for our whole team. So I kind of look at this as, and I have other teams too. In one of my businesses with Yanik, we have in Evolved Enterprise, we got a team that's now grown from 4 to like 16 really rapidly because we started this apprentice program. So team building is something I've always been really passionate about, and what I look to is building them like communities. So sort of like you have your RSD community, which is this larger global thing, and different people, when they start businesses, they eventually create communities of customers. I look at our team as a community, so how can everybody support each other, and then how can I as a leader, and then other leaders that are managers or partners in these companies, how can we as leaders show up in the greatest way to serve our communities? And that's the leadership development question I always ask myself. How can I level up in the way that I serve this community? And then that community is my team, so clearly if I'm leveling up to serve them, they're performing a lot better, they're serving the company more, and everybody wins because the company's more profitable, and they're excited because they've got the community and team and leadership support to grow in their own lives and their own careers.
We were talking about social consciousness a little bit, and
Right.
earlier today, I was hanging out with a nonprofit that does charities, and they have events, and we were looking at having one at our house where we had a huge party last night. And a lot of your time is, dedicated to mentoring and volunteering to help young entrepreneurs. What are some of those charitable causes and philanthropic kind of things you do within the entrepreneur community and otherwise that you believe that your business is really building upon, and why do you do it?
Yeah, so the big one for me, as we've kind of discussed, is entrepreneurship, because I believe that business is one of the greatest vehicles to change the world. And that the world that we see 10, 20 years from now is going to be based on the direction that the economy heads, because the economic forces end up transforming culture, end up transforming the way that people live, the way that people work. That's where people spend most of their time, energy, money, whatever, right? So I think finding young entrepreneurs, so for me more specifically, it's been Maverick Next, the kind of high-performing young entrepreneurs, because they're going to become the leaders of that generation, and then helping them kind of identify what their core impact is in the world, and then helping them accelerate that path. But I've also worked with a lot of teen entrepreneurs, so we do this event called Maverick Family Freedom. We bring in a bunch of parents and their kids. I work with the 13 to 16-year-old kids and kind of teach them entrepreneurship and set them off on that trajectory. I've also, when I was younger, I taught entrepreneurship at a youth prison. So kids that were incarcerated, 14 to 17 years old, and taught them business and taught them how to like go out and start businesses, whether it's like a lawn care company or like a car detailing business or whatever, because a lot of these kids were already into business. They were just like selling drugs. That's why they were in jail. But they had the skills and the drive. They just had the wrong kind of training and background based on their environment. So for me, young entrepreneurship is probably like the biggest cause, because I believe that transforming the minds of these youngsters to greater impact and greater ambition will dictate what the world looks like 20, 30, 40 years from now. And then there's a bunch of other causes that we're involved with Maverick and Evolved Enterprise and just what I do personally. But I'd say like the youth is the biggest one for me.
Well, since you're involved with so many mastermind groups and mentorship programs, who are some of the mentors that have influenced you and how they've done so?
Yeah, absolutely. So you were actually a big one when I was like 23, 24. What was great about you is that I had a lot of other mentors that were more on the creative big vision side. You would look at my spreadsheets and operations, and you'd be like, what are you talking about? Look, with your big vision, like, let's look at the numbers and let's look at reality. So you were definitely one along that path.
Awesome.
Yanik Silver was definitely a big one. I've had different ones, like through the Maverick network. I've had different people mentor me in various areas that have been pretty significant for me. I've had people that I've looked up to through more like books and things that I've studied. So Steve Jobs was somebody that I really looked up to for a long time. And then I transitioned to more of like having Richard Branson as more of an idol, because also similar size businesses and impact in the world, but a lot happier of a guy. And I've kind of surrounded myself where even now, most of the people that are in my life and in my networks are entrepreneurs that are significantly more successful than I am at a financial and impact level, just further along the path. So it gets me to continually level up. So I don't have necessarily like count like, okay, these are my specific mentors that I look to for guidance. But almost like my whole network that I've surrounded myself with is now I consider kind of like a mentorship group and a mentorship circle. And then I've had others that have kind of taught me. I had a really great mentor in Austin named Tristan Truscott. He kind of taught me more of the spiritual side of life and martial arts and Zen Buddhism and all of that stuff, which had a huge impact on my life. And I've had other people that have influenced me in different ways. But I'd say from a business perspective, it just continues to be the social circle I surround myself with.
Well, being that we're in a library,
Yeah.
what are some of the books that have inspired you the most?
Yeah. So again, traction was really big for me. When I was young, so depending on who's watching this, like if somebody's more so getting started in a business and figuring out their financial freedom, 4-Hour Work Week was really huge for me. When I was much younger, Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk was really big for me. One that I'm reading now that's super relevant for, I'm kind of find myself on this accelerated climb to greater success with both my personal brand and my companies, and I've seen a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. So I'm reading right now Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. So that I'm about halfway through that book, and it's really kicking my ass. So that's been a really big one that I encourage to any young person kind of who has really big, ambitious dreams to figure out what's going to stop them along that path.
I just read about that book because Julian wrote an article on the front page of RSC Nation about that book. And that's why I just heard about that. Now, you've mentioned so many different authors and mentors.
Yeah.
Now, if you have, this is a question I got asked yesterday when I was at the RSC World Summit. Someone asked me if there was 3 people that I'd want to have dinner with that I have not yet met, who would those successful business people be that I would want to talk business about and also just get to know better?
Yeah. It would be really cool to bring Steve Jobs back.
From the dead.
Right. I would totally love that if we're talking purely theoretical.
I remember you used to talk about that guy all the time.
Yeah, I was pretty obsessed with Steve Jobs, and I still am in so many ways in terms of like his vision, his just obsession with beauty, making the world a better place through products and all of that. I just realized from a lifestyle perspective, like I'd rather just be a little happier, more relaxed. So he's definitely one. I've now had dinner with Branson, so I can't really list him, but he would have been one before I had that dinner.
What about 3 people that you haven't met that are still alive, that are business influences, that you believe that you could learn from, that could be mentors, that could, that you want to have part of your mastermind?
Tim Ferriss, definitely. While I've met Tim Ferriss briefly, just kind of had a glass of wine, I would love to have like a long dinner with him and be able to just pick his brain on my life. So he would be really amazing for me. Gary Vee, again, I'm breaking your rule. I've met him, but haven't really had like a bonding moment. So again, somebody that I would really deeply look up to. And then another one, I'm not getting an exact name for this, but I think that there's somebody, I would love to find somebody, and maybe somebody watching this interview can comment below and like have an idea of who this might be. But I would love to find somebody that inspires me that has built multiple companies at the same time. So I'm building 4 now, where I'm operationally involved in each. And I don't really feel like I have true mentors to look up to who are doing that at a young age or who have walked that path successfully. And the people that have mentored me have kind of looked at me as like, your current reality is crazy. You can't actually do what you're doing. So I would love to find somebody that's done that really successfully, build 4 different companies in different industries at the same time. Not like one after the other, but literally like not sequentially, but simultaneously, and find that person to mentor me.
I actually got asked that same question, and so I mentioned somebody who does that, Elon Musk.
Oh, awesome.
He's building SpaceX, he's building Tesla, and he is someone who, from my understanding, because Tucker Max, I interviewed him, and he's really good friends with Elon's assistant.
Yeah, I love Tucker.
He was saying that this guy spends like 80-hour weeks. This guy's hardcore, but he's building all these multiple businesses at the same time. But it's really challenging for someone like that to have balance. So, I mean, my understanding is his social life is like this really, really tiny. Whereas other people's lives are like kind of like a balance. How do you manage your life in terms of your work-life balance?
Yeah, I've got a very active social life. So I've got an amazing conscious community in San Diego that I hang out with. I actually started a Facebook group when I moved to San Diego called the San Diego Conscious Community, which now has like 1,800 members in it. go to parties, throw parties, social events are a big part of my life. Plus, there's Maverick Next and the Maverick community, which I also consider social circles. I do a lot of like spoken word poetry and just have huge artistic passions. So I do a lot outside of business. So that's also one of my criteria is like being able to walk this entrepreneurial path while doing a lot of social stuff that I enjoyed throughout my 20s because I know I'm not going to get these years back. So it's important for me to do all this stuff, even if it slows down my success a tiny bit, but it makes me happier and more successful in terms of my own values.
Now you're involved with a lot of mastermind groups. What are those mastermind groups you think people should join?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what level you're at. Obviously, I would pitch Maverick Next if you're a young entrepreneur 25 and under who's six-figure plus business. There's also a lot of other less exclusive groups. Maverick 1000 is great for $1 million plus entrepreneurs who are a little more adventure oriented or impact oriented. If you're looking for more of like the business side of things, I think EO is probably a really great group. And I know there's YPO and others like that. But for me, it's been the Maverick world takes up enough of my mastermind time that I haven't really joined a lot of others.
Well, Maverick is a combination of like crazy vacations, or you might do things like skydiving or going to a world event like the US Open, and you also are networking with each other, doing all sorts of interesting things. I know that some of the Maverick Venture people even will go on to the Virgin Galactic with Richard Branson or go to his home and all sorts of crazy things. It's not cheap, but it's interesting. Now you have this new thing that's called Maverick Publishing that you're doing as a partner with Yanik Silver. What is this and what's your goal with this?
Yeah, so the company's called Evolved Enterprise. So Yanik basically wrote this book called Evolved Enterprise, which is how to bring more impact into business while creating greater profit for those companies. So looking at socially conscious companies like Virgin or like Zappos or like Tom's Shoes that has the one-for-one model, and basically looking at how can we distill what those companies are doing in a way that an entrepreneur can apply where they can really make a positive difference in the world through business while aligning with their hearts and souls of what it is that they actually want to do and express out in the world. So it's all based on, the company's based on this book that Yanik wrote called Evolved Enterprise. Then we've got educational programs and communities behind it. So Yanik and I partnered on this about a year ago to do the initial launch of this book. We're doing a big relaunch coming up in October and in the months after that, and then going a little bit more mainstream with everything. Where Yanik's been more of the content, kind of creative networking side of the business, and I've been more of the operational, like CEO driving the growth side of the business. So that's been a lot of fun. And where in Vision Tech Team, I'm more of the creative guy. In this company, I'm much more of the operational guy. So I get to play both roles, and I truly believe that in the long term, like this organization we're building is right place, right time, both to make a lot of money with the educational products we're selling, but also to bring the world into this new phase of economy that's going to actually make a lot of impact in the next 5 to 10 years.
Another interesting thing about what you did is you merged two significantly sized tech companies into one. You and your partner James both had completely different companies. How did that merger work, and how did your corporate governance change as you were doing that?
Yeah, so I had a small agency called Purpose Inspired Marketing, so doing like lower multiple six figures at the time, and so did James. His was called 24-Hour Tech Stud. I was much more on the creative side, so Purpose Inspired Marketing. Naturally, we were doing a lot of like design work, and we were doing development, but not as hardcore. And James was on the other side of that, more development, less design. And I knew that I would have other companies to build, and I couldn't commit myself full time to building this company anymore and running Maverick Next and doing all the other stuff I was doing with Yanik and my life. While James was looking for the right partner to help him scale. So we came together and followed the process of visionary integrator as in Traction, and then there's another book called Rocket Fuel that's great on this exact partnership, the visionary integrator partnership. So I had this bigger vision for what the company could be, and it was more of the creative side, brought in all my contacts in terms of networking for more of like an informal advisory board, plus building a really solid client base, building a team, and then James was able to actually run the company on a full-time basis, and he was a lot more effective at the day-to-day than I was. So we formed a Vision Tech Team together, on perfect name because it allowed us, again, like the Vision Entrepreneurs as clients, and went from doing a lot of one-off projects to doing monthly retainer work with virtually all of our clients, And that allowed us to take an industry where people compete for $3 or $4 an hour in the web design industry and build a business model where most of our clients pay us $5,000 to $10,000 a month for highly expert-based, consistent design and development work. So it gave us a sustainable revenue stream to build this incredible team that serves the clients that we selectively choose to work with. So it's been pretty amazing going from, each of us had, I think I had a team of 5 people at the time, he had a team of 3, to now a company of 25 people about 2 years later. And as far as the structure didn't change much. Each of us had our LLCs, we merged, we started a new entity, which is the new LLC. We're actually transitioning a lot of that now as our growth has escalated. We're examining new legal structures for that.
Yeah, we're analyzing a lot of that even within my own company. That's what's interesting to me. Formalizing operating agreements. You might have something similar where you basically break down exactly who's doing what, processes, that kind of stuff, what they can and can't do. And it's interesting because there's so much discussion about that it's basically been taking up like at least 15% of my mind all year, just trying to figure out how to do all these different things. It's been quite a challenge for me. And what's interesting about you is that you're in San Diego, but these other people, including your core operations guys, well, they're in Arizona.
Right.
And I don't even know if there's anyone else in San Diego. Is there? Yeah. So
I just refuse to live anywhere but by the ocean. That's part of my lifestyle requirement.
Yeah. And so I guess from having that standpoint, you said to me earlier that it's amazing how effective everything is going in Arizona. You're in San Diego.
Right.
So do you believe that by having you in San Diego, you're doing something that does not necessarily require them to be actively hands-on because you're more of the vision, and the vision and the operations are kind of separate?
Right.
Is that how it's working?
Right, and I visit Phoenix often enough, and I have a virtual relationship with my team. But I do believe that the most important thing that I can do in my company is to keep my mind open, flexible, creative, and keep myself happy enough to stay in flow. That doesn't necessarily apply to every operational role. While I definitely want everybody in our company to be really happy, there's different measures of effectiveness for everybody. And I feel blessed enough to be in the role where that's actually like the happier I am, then the more creative I am, the more free I feel, the better decisions I can make. And if my job for the company is to hold a creative vision moving forward, to network and build really great relationships, and to solve problems, which is literally my main job in the company, is to solve problems. When there's a creative problem that comes, I solve it. And then other people will implement the solutions. Because of that, I think where I live, how I live, my lifestyle, all of the things that keep me in balance and in flow are really important to me. So I would actually have less of those things if I was in Phoenix, because I wouldn't thrive as much personally, and therefore my creative brain wouldn't work as well.
It's very similar to me and Owen, because I have a team in Las Vegas, and he's in Los Angeles, this video production team kind of doing his thing, and then we have our guys remote. So the similarities, I think, are really interesting. But I do think it's kind of like a lot of the modern companies are doing this. At the same time, for our company, we feel like we are going to have to do a lot more brick and mortar office work just to get people together, just because we believe that there's so many little efficiencies that if you tighten up, it makes a huge difference for us. But in the past, it really hasn't really mattered as much because we're working on so many different projects at a time. And the goal has changed for us year after year.
Right.
For example, 3 years ago, our goal was to just get better video equipment. The next goal was the following year to get teams of people traveling around, 3 to 5 man teams to every instructor. Now this upcoming goal is now to get chief level guys surrounding Owen and throughout the company, getting chief marketing officers, strategy officers, chief operations of all kinds in different departments. And we've already gotten those guys, but more guys that are even more like that. So tons of MBAs and really successful business people from other companies that have good skills. It's kind of a totally different thought process. These are all goals specific to our company. What are the goals that are specific to your company?
Yeah, so and I'll echo on that a little bit too. It's cool how you guys have evolved from like, hey, we can just have a totally virtual team, to having a lot of people in an office while others are still virtual, and having this hybrid model. And we've done a lot of the same thing. We used to have a totally virtual team, and now we found the more time management spends in one place together, the more effective they are and the more cohesive we are as a team. We do the same thing in the Philippines. We have a lot of virtual people. We also have 2 satellite offices in the Philippines, one which has 4 people that I was telling you about with our tech lead Marvin. He's got 2 and now 3 employees that actually work directly there with him. And then another office where we kind of like sublease a spot there, and we've got a sizable team there that works out of there, and then other people are remote. So it's been huge for us, and I definitely see us evolving more towards people working cohesively in person because there's a greater ROI on what we're investing in our people if they're able to collaborate together. So I totally believe in that. As far as the specific goals for us in our company, it's we're going to keep scaling the agency little by little. I don't want this huge growth because we're a boutique and we really pride ourselves in taking really good care of our clients. And it takes a lot for us to train a project manager like Jonathan that works with you guys for them to really, really know each person's business so that they can serve it at the highest level versus just taking requests and then pumping out work. So we're going to scale the agency very slowly. So right now, last year we did just over $1 million in revenue. We're going to keep kind of growing, probably not through multiplication, but through addition on the agency side. And then as we're launching the software side, so that's going to be called InfluX, which is basically going to be a website builder for personal brands to create their own unique brands and expressions online. So kind of following the whole Gary Vee trend of a lot of people building their own personal brands, we're going to be the engine behind that. That's something we feel we can scale with initially with our own team, and then eventually building more of a separate software team for it. So a lot of our goals right now are around how can we do our absolute best to take care of our current clients, add on a few more clients that we really, really want to work with to keep our operations sustainable, and then meanwhile continue to build the software product without pulling too much of our current resources until it becomes profitable.
Now, you've always been focused on mobile, phone apps, mobile sites, and stuff like that. I personally have always despised all mobile sites whatsoever, even though I have one. It was kind of unintentional because your site just automatically forces us into it.
We totally build responsive sites. We haven't actually got into mobile apps, but I do really.
Well, you're building brands for
sites.
mobile apps and
Right.
stuff like that. So I thought that interesting. So I guess are you focusing also now on boom still both websites and mobile sites and stuff like that? And do you believe that there's like a strong future in having mobile responsive websites?
Yeah, totally. I think people will get more and more used to the mobile responsive layout, and I think it's really important to like simplify the experience for somebody on a phone because there's usually a lot less things that they're looking for, and they're not going to zoom in and out and look at a bunch of text. Like you may be used to it because this has been like you grew up looking at the full site, and that's what you're used to. But then a newer generation coming in, they're actually more used to looking at stuff on their mobile devices. So they're more used to the responsive version, the smaller version of the site that's a little bit scaled down. And then they can find the information if they need it. So we've done a lot of study and continue to kind of study around like what makes a really great and effective mobile responsive website so that people can easily find what they're looking for while you're still able to kind of direct them where you want them to go. Without limiting the information that's on there.
When you were talking about Steve Jobs, I think one of the reasons why you talk about him so much is because he is somebody who was such a strict guy in terms of making awesome design. You were talking about that earlier.
Right.
And you were talking about good design, but how do you define what is good design? What are the things that features and benefits that people are looking at and they see this website? What is it that makes it good versus not good?
Right. So there's like an aesthetic, ethereal component to it, right, which is subjective and harder to discuss. And then there's a functional component to it, which is like what actually makes somebody want to use something and stay on there long enough to actually play with it so that they can build a relationship with it, which I think a design plays into that a lot. So you look at like an iPhone, for example, or most Apple physical products, they're things that, aside from like looking nice, they're actually pretty simple, but they're things that people want to use. So we do a similar thing when evaluating sites. It's like, how functional is this? We'll actually put heat maps on things to see how people are actually using the sites. Again, split testing goes into a lot of this. So it's looking at not just like what looks really great as part of design, but what looks really great to the user in the sense they're actually building enough of a relationship with it that then you, from a sales perspective, can nurture that relationship long enough for them to make a buying decision. So all of that matters when I look at design. This is like what's actually functional, what gets people to make decisions, what gets people to have an experience on there long enough to build the relationship with whatever it is that you're selling or offering.
Well, a lot of our websites were designed by you guys, so it has
Right.
a very similar kind of design, like theme or look and feel.
Right.
I guess I was wondering, is a sense of a classiness? Is it a sense of appeal? Is it like a techie feel? Like what is it, or is it different from client to client?
I'd say it's different from client to client. There's a few things, especially in direct response, that are standard. So like readability. So a lot of people in the more modern design world use these like really big images and then text over the images, which we do sometimes, but we're always very careful to not go too far in like the fashion angle of design so that we don't screw up readability, because that'll actually hurt conversion metrics and the flow of the site. Another thing we look at on sales letters is like, how is one section flowing to another, flowing to another, flowing to another. So it's not just these separate things, but whether it's like arrows going down, whether it's imagery that blends one thing into the next, and so on and so forth, whether it's the image catches your eye, and because the guy's face is facing this direction, you're more likely to read the copy there. So like designing each section with enough intentionality so that it actually serves the message versus pulls away from the message. So there's a lot of standard things like that, and then beyond that, it's different for every brand, and not just the brand, because all the brand is a centerpiece for the audience. What we study is, okay, who is the audience for this brand? So we know your guys' audience very well because we've been designing for them for a long time. I've been to your events. We've like looked through your products, and we're aware of, for the most part, who these people are that are looking at this. So that guides us in choosing the right imagery, choosing the right colors, kind of doing the right guidelines for what a design should look like, plus then combining it with a creative vision of whoever we're working with. So for example, we did Jeffy's launch, and he did kind of like this cool, and I think it was execute the program, this cool like 8-bit thing. So we're like, cool, this is a fun challenge. How can we take this on and make it cool and make it modern and make it something that converts really well? So we kind of do that as a fun thing with every client, where it's both a science in terms of how can this thing convert really well, and an art of how can we take this creative challenge on and then make it work.
Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the interesting things about you do, or you used to do, I'm not sure if you're still doing it now, is that you guys were originally called Purpose-Inspired Marketing because you were actually engaged with a lot of the interactive digital marketing involved with your clients. Are you still involved with a lot of that as well, or not so much anymore?
We've niched down a lot more because we built a design and development team. So we still do marketing consulting because we have exposure to so many people's funnels and what everybody's doing in the industry, and we put most of our project managers through digital marketing certification programs and training. But the main deliverable we do is design and development. And the reason for that is we haven't wanted to, like, there's other people out there who are always going to be better at AdWords, always going to be better at copywriting, always going to be better at Facebook ads. They build their own agencies around this stuff. So while we do a little bit of consulting on that so that we can improve people's funnels and we can improve their metrics, I've really believed in just like, okay, we're a vision tech team, we're going to be the tech and creative team for visionaries. So how can we be the best in the world at doing that and scale that versus try to like jump into every possible vertical and then having to build a much more complex team where we're mediocre at everything.
Now, being involved with Maverick Business Adventures and somebody who goes on crazy trips that are themed and traveling around the world and meeting all sorts of interesting people, how has this affected your life?
Yeah, totally. So Necker Island obviously totally changed my life because number one, these things expand my vision for what's possible in life. Yanik plans really fun, creative trips. So you guys were at the Maverick M3 Summit in Mexico, right? 12/21/12, shortly after you guys got married in Maui. And then we slept in a freaking Mayan village from 12/20 to 12/21/12, right? On the solstice and like this turning of the Mayan calendar, which is supposed to be the end of the world according to white people, right?
Got to cuddle with a lion.
Right, yeah, we got to cuddle with lions, so and like hold these like big snakes up, which is like these really cool experiences. They're just once in a lifetime that I don't have to plan or just show up for. And they always expand my mind for what's possible. And I end up meeting people and having unique conversations in those environments that just like blow my mind open or make a business connection that could be worth a ton just through casual conversation. Necker was definitely that. I mean, the guy has Branson has a island that's like a giant playground with flamingos and tortoises and lemurs and like kite surfing and all kinds of water sports and paddle boarding from island to island, and having these experiences are like, oh, this guy built his own tropical paradise because he felt like it. And that expands my mind to, okay, what else is possible? I think I've done a lot in life by this age, and then all of a sudden just like, wow, there's a whole world out there of what could be created. And realizing that life, just like business, is a blank canvas where I can just do whatever I ultimately want or whatever I'm committed to doing. And every time I have these experiences, it gives me an idea of how to, I guess, like use that brush differently on the canvas.
Well, I feel like also all these things inspire you,
right?
Yet at the same time also increases your conversational repertoire because you
right.
have so many things to relate to other people.
Right.
I feel like the commonalities and bonds you could have with all sorts of people from all walks of life is really kind of a unique thing, because you could be with some of the most powerful billionaires in the world, but if you have some of the same commonalities and passions, you can really connect with them. Also, when you're trying to understand other people, usually you can understand them a lot better from a personal perspective as opposed to a business perspective, because everyone's on a different level business-wise. At the same time, I think there's also a lot of skills that you'll learn, not just from being an entrepreneur. I know that you coach mostly entrepreneurs, but what about those people who are not entrepreneurs? What about those people who want to be just entrepreneurial, build their businesses within a business? What are some of the tips that you could give to them, as if you were like a Maverick Next for non-business owners, that you could give to people that you think kind of like relate, similar to like what you have taught, what you have learned from mentors?
Yeah, this is a really great question. So I believe in people finding whatever it is that they're truly passionate about, or like their purpose, if you will, right? Like why they're here and what they are here to do, and then expressing that through whatever vehicle is best for them. And oftentimes that's not entrepreneurship. Oftentimes that is working for another organization or with another organization, or building a business within a business, whatever that might be. So like finding that, firstly, aside from any external opportunities, finding within yourself what it is that you want to do, and then aligning with the right opportunity that helps you express that. And oftentimes working within a business is actually a faster growth track than starting your own. Because when you work within a business, if you choose the right organization to work for, you'll have by default mentorship that wants you to grow because you're working for their company, and the more you grow, the more you produce for them. Looking for that specifically in any job opportunity. So even before I started my own business, I always, in all my jobs before that, I looked for how can this position help me grow, right? And like always asking yourself that, what can I become through working here, or who can I become through working here? So align with organizations with similar values and with a growth trajectory for you that will help you get there. And then do a lot of the same stuff that entrepreneurs do, like read a lot of books, go to events, like hang out with really smart people, put yourself in rooms where most of the people in the room are smarter and further along than you, whether it's in career or otherwise, and just continuously expand your mind. I think in a job sometimes it can be easier to get a little lazy because you know you've got the same paycheck coming in every month. And sometimes some people feel like they don't have an influence over that. The truth is you always have an influence over how much money you make, because how much money you make in the long term is reflective of what value you're adding to the organization and to the economy. So like never getting complacent and always looking at how can I increase my value of what I'm adding to the economy, what I'm adding to this organization, how valuable I am, until the world ends up paying me more for that value, regardless of whether it's your own business or a job.
You know, most of my core base for this YouTube channel was based from RSD's personal and dating life experience, and then giving tips and showing how those tips have converted into the business world.
Right.
Now, how do you view all the stuff that you've learned from the business world, and how does that apply to like your personal and dating life experiences?
Oh, absolutely. And it goes both ways, totally. So I'll say the other way first. Over the last 2 years of being single, my life with women, and even before that in long-term relationships, like my life with women has actually been one of my greatest catalysts for growth that has helped how I show up in entrepreneurship and business, in my personal life, in relationships with friends and all of that. Because, and I know you guys talk about this a lot, is like how I show up with women and in my dating world is very reflective of who I actually am versus who I think I am. And there were so many like gaping holes of growth that I had found when I went back out in the dating world when I was 25 and single. So that was a huge reflection for me of like areas that I had to grow in, especially around like self-confidence and communication and how I showed up and like where my feelings were getting hurt and so on and so forth. And then on the flip side, as far as how the business world has affected dating life and personal life and all of that, I think it's through a lot of what we've talked about with like expanding my network, and then through that network expanding my mind, and always having more interesting things to talk about, having really cool life experiences that I then get to share with women that I'm dating, really much greater interpersonal skills. So if I can sit there and have a dinner conversation with a billionaire, it's also a lot easier for me to sit there and have a really engaging conversation with a hot girl that I might be intimidated by. So all of those things have significantly improved my dating life too, and reading a lot of books, and the whole personal growth journey. All of that shows up in life with women and in dating, and it all kind of, I think, is full circle. And I think a lot of the reason that even as men we're so driven to create successful businesses ultimately is part of the whole like mating game, right? In the long term, one of the reasons we want to have wealth and status and so on and so forth is to have the best relationship with the best partner, so that then we can like have kids, and then have those kids, you know, grow up and reproduce in the best possible environment, and all of it connects and interrelates.
So what are those things that motivate you, and what are those things that you could say to other people who are watching this video that do you think will motivate them?
Yeah. So what motivates me? For me, it continues to come back to that concept of purpose. And I've mentioned that a lot, but I haven't said what mine was. So I've identified mine in terms of like short language. Mine is to accelerate the evolution of love through inspiring and empowering influencers. You don't have to have yours kind of like dialed down to some like short sentence. That's taken a lot of work for me, because that's also a lot of the work that I do with others. But having an idea of what really drives me in terms of not just like within myself of like what kind of car do I want to drive, what kind of home do I want to have, what kind of relationship do I want, all of those things are important, but it's ultimately like, okay, before I die, what is it that I wanted to have happen in the world because of actions that I took? So asking myself that question, and I encourage people to ask themselves that question. And sometimes that may feel like too big in the moment, right? So if somebody's like just trying to figure out their finances, they're like, shit, what influence I want to have in the world, I got to pay my bills, right? But I think A, having that big perspective helps motivate you for the smaller stuff. And then B, sometimes it's important to just look at the smaller stuff and say like, okay, what kind of life do I want to have? And we go back to this blank canvas approach. If you truly believe that life is this blank canvas, or your business is this blank canvas, or your career is, and you have the opportunity to paint whatever you want on there, and maybe you're making shitty drawings because you haven't learned how to paint, you go out there and learn how to paint. And that can look like learning dating, right? That can look like learning entrepreneurship and getting really good at business, in your career and your fitness, whatever it is. But asking yourself and getting in touch with desire, like what do I want? And I find actually so many people are not in touch with that. So they go out there and they seek strategies and tactics and all this education to get them what looks like success, but they don't actually ask themselves, what do I want? So the two questions, I guess, it boiled down to is like, what do I want to see in the world that I can influence? And then the other is just like simple, what do I want? And if it's, I want a hot girlfriend, cool. If it's, I want to change the world in XYZ way, cool. And anything in between, like all of those things are important, but getting in touch with that desire and then figuring out what it is that you have to do to actually get you there.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Dimitri. This has been great.
Yeah,
Cheers.
awesome. Thanks a lot, Nick. Appreciate it.
I hope you guys enjoyed the interview today. If you're interested in more interviews, check out my show every single Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to ask any questions to me directly, just ask them in the comments below, and every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will be answering them on the Ask Nick Co Show. Also, if you're interested in meeting the other mastermind members, joining a tribe, check out rscfoundersclub.com.